The transfer window has suddenly exploded. Carlos Baleba is officially a Manchester United player. Sávio has left Manchester City for Tottenham. Manchester City could now reshape their midfield again, with Enzo Fernandez among the names being considered. Gabriel Martinelli is seriously considering an approach from Al Hilal. Aston Villa could lose Ollie Watkins while already looking at some very ambitious replacements. And Liverpool are still searching for another winger. With only days remaining before the transfer window closes, these aren't isolated stories anymore. One move could trigger another, and another. So today, instead of simply listing transfer rumors, we're going to separate what's done, what's genuinely developing, and what could create the next major transfer domino. Let's begin with the deal that is officially complete. Carlos Baleba is a Manchester United player. After weeks of negotiations with Brighton, United have finally secured the 22-year-old Cameroon international. Baleba has signed a contract running until 2031, with Manchester United holding an option for another season. And this is much more than another midfield signing. Michael Carrick has effectively rebuilt the center of Manchester United's team in one summer. Youri Tielemans arrived, Andre Santos arrived, and now Baleba joins them. Each player offers something different. Tielemans gives United experience, passing range, and control. Santos offers energy, technical quality, and the ability to move between midfield roles. Baleba brings something United have desperately needed: physicality, ball recovery, progressive carrying, and the ability to defend large spaces. Manchester United's own analysis notes that Baleba ranked among the Premier League's strongest midfielders for tackles, interceptions, and second ball recoveries. That makes his role relatively easy to understand. Carrick doesn't necessarily need Baleba to become the team's main creator. He needs him to give the creators freedom. If Baleba protects the midfield effectively, Bruno Fernandes can operate higher. Tielemans can receive the ball with less defensive responsibility, and Santos can move into more aggressive areas. So while the headline is that United have signed another midfielder, the bigger story is what Carrick can now build around him. But Manchester United may not be the only club dramatically changing shape, because something very interesting is happening across Manchester. Sávio has left Manchester City and joined Tottenham. The Brazilian winger becomes another major addition to Roberto De Zerbi's rebuilding project. And for Tottenham, this is a fascinating transfer. Sávio gives them 1-versus-1 ability, acceleration, width, and unpredictability. Those qualities become especially valuable in a De Zerbi system because his teams often try to attract pressure centrally before releasing players into space. If Tottenham can draw opponents toward the middle of the pitch, Sávio can receive the ball with a defender isolated against him. And that is exactly the type of situation where he becomes dangerous. But there is another side to this transfer. Manchester City. City have already undergone enormous change, and Sávio's departure could be followed by more. Omar Marmoush could also leave if City complete the right incoming deals. Nico Gonzalez is moving closer to Newcastle, and that means City's midfield search becomes increasingly important. One of the biggest names being discussed is Enzo Fernandez. This is not an agreed transfer. Chelsea have not sold him, but Manchester City's interest is significant because Enzo offers something very different from the traditional defensive midfielder. He can receive under pressure, he can dictate tempo, he can play forward through midfield, and he already understands the intensity of Premier League football. But Chelsea would have their own problem if he leaves. Who replaces him? According to current reporting, Alex Scott and Adam Wharton are among the midfielders Chelsea could seriously consider if Enzo departs. And suddenly you can see how the domino works. Manchester City move for Enzo. Chelsea need another midfielder. Chelsea move for Alex Scott. Bournemouth then have to make a decision about one of their most important players. One transfer changes 3 clubs, and this is why the final week of the window can become so unpredictable. But perhaps the most fascinating developing situation is at Aston Villa. Villa have already experienced enormous change this summer, and now Ollie Watkins could become another major departure. Unai Emery has acknowledged that Watkins has received offers. Al Hilal are interested, and Villa are already exploring attacking options. This matters because Watkins isn't simply another forward in Emery's squad. He changes how Aston Villa attack. His movement stretches center-backs. He attacks channels. He creates space for midfield runners. And when Villa win possession, Watkins gives them an immediate target behind the defensive line. Replacing his goals would be difficult. Replacing everything he does around those goals could be even harder. And Villa's possible replacements tell us just how seriously they are preparing. Jean-Philippe Mateta is one option. Nicolas Jackson could become another if Watkins leaves. And Villa have even made an approach for Raphael Leão. That is a very different profile. Leão wouldn't simply replace Watkins position for position. He could transform the way Villa attack. He is devastating when carrying the ball from wide positions. He can attack defenders directly, and he can turn transition opportunities into chances almost by himself. Whether Villa can actually complete something that ambitious is another question. But the fact they are exploring these profiles tells us the club is preparing for the possibility of life without Watkins. And Nicolas Jackson creates another potential domino. If Watkins goes to Al Hilal, Villa could move for Jackson. Chelsea would then lose another attacking player, and Chelsea could use that money and squad space elsewhere. Again, one move, several consequences. But Al Hilal aren't only looking at Watkins. Gabriel Martinelli is another major Premier League player whose future is suddenly worth watching. Arsenal do not need to sell him, but Al Hilal are pushing, and Martinelli is understood to be seriously considering the move. This creates a fascinating decision for Arsenal. They are defending Premier League champions. They have an extremely strong squad, and they are still interested in Julian Alvarez. But Alvarez appears to prefer Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid don't want to sell him to Arsenal. So Arsenal have to think carefully. If Martinelli stays, they retain a proven Premier League winger. If he leaves, Arsenal suddenly have money and a major attacking position to fill during the final days of the window. And if Alvarez remains unavailable, do Arsenal move for somebody else, or do they trust the squad they already have? That is one of the most interesting situations to watch because Arsenal don't need to panic. They can afford to wait. But a huge Martinelli offer could change the equation very quickly. Then there is Liverpool. Liverpool's priority remains clear: width. They have pursued Paris Saint-Germain attackers Bradley Barcola and Ibrahim Mbaye. They have also made attempts to sign Yankuba Minteh from Brighton. But none of those deals is simple. Brighton have already rejected major offers for Minteh. PSG's valuation of Barcola is enormous. And Liverpool also have another problem. Other clubs want Cody Gakpo. Tottenham have shown interest, Manchester City like him, but Liverpool don't want to sell. And logically, they can't afford to lose Gakpo unless replacements arrive first. So imagine another possible chain. Liverpool finally sign a winger. That gives them more flexibility around Gakpo. Manchester City or Tottenham return. Liverpool then decide whether the offer is strong enough. Again, the key word is if. None of that is completed. But those are exactly the relationships worth watching during the final week. And Newcastle are involved too. They are advancing toward a deal for Manchester City's Nico Gonzalez. Newcastle want midfield experience. City are willing to reshape their squad. And if Gonzalez leaves, City's need for another midfielder becomes even clearer. Which brings us back to Enzo Fernandez. This is what makes the final week of the transfer window so fascinating. The biggest stories are no longer independent. Manchester City selling players influences Tottenham. City's midfield changes could influence Chelsea. Chelsea's decisions could influence Bournemouth. Al Hilal's pursuit of Watkins could influence Aston Villa and Chelsea. Their pursuit of Martinelli could influence Arsenal. Liverpool's winger search could influence Manchester City and Tottenham. And somewhere inside all of this, one unexpected deal could change everything again. So let's separate the situation clearly. Carlos Baleba to Manchester United? Done. Sávio to Tottenham? Done. Ollie Watkins to Al Hilal? Developing, not completed. Gabriel Martinelli to Al Hilal? Active interest, not completed. Enzo Fernandez to Manchester City? Interest, not an agreement. Nico Gonzalez to Newcastle? Advancing. Liverpool signing another winger? Very much still being worked on. And Arsenal signing Julian Alvarez? Possible, but currently difficult. That distinction matters because transfer windows create enormous amounts of noise. A player being discussed is not the same thing as an offer. An offer is not the same thing as an agreement. And an agreement isn't a completed transfer until the final formalities are finished. But with the September 1st deadline approaching, clubs no longer have unlimited time. Decisions have to be made. Players have to choose. Selling clubs need replacements. Buying clubs have to decide how far they're willing to go. And that's when the dominoes begin falling. Baleba and Sávio have already moved. Now watch Watkins, watch Martinelli, watch Enzo Fernandez. And watch Liverpool's winger search, because any one of those situations could trigger the next major transfer of the summer. And by the time the window closes, several Premier League squads could look very different from the ones we see today. Which transfer happens next? Watkins to Al Hilal, Martinelli to Saudi Arabia, Enzo Fernandez to Manchester City, or something nobody is expecting? Let me know in the comments. And subscribe to Football Chronicles for the biggest transfer developments, Premier League stories, and the football behind the headlines.